Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Business Talk Podcast, episode 16. We have Greg here today to talk to you a little bit about customer success and about his journey as a remodeler. Greg, do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your business?
Sure. My name is Greg Posler. I own Dream Kitchen Designs. We're basically kitchen and bath contractors. We had a showroom in Cranford for 14 years. We're relocating down a little bit further south of New Jersey right now. So we're in flux in between doing that. Um, and I have 45 years experience, 47 years actually. But um, yeah, we do kitchens, bathrooms. I do design, sales, installs. Um, I don't know what else you'd like to know.
Well, I would be interested in knowing what got you started in the business.
Hmm. Interesting. I was going to college to be an electromechanical engineer. I was in my third year. I was working for a kitchen company. I didn't want to be an engineer. I hated it, but I enjoyed doing what I was doing in kitchens, and it kind of stuck. Much to my parents not being happy at that point, but they got over it.
Wow, man, I actually similar story. I was in school for mechanical engineering, and I realized like halfway through my second year that like I didn't understand anything or care about it, and I was doing it because everyone else told me that that was a good. Like I actually looked up on Safari how much money do mechanical engineers make and saw that they could make over $100,000 and was like, I'm gonna do that. And that's literally that was my justification for spending 2 years in high school and 2 years in college trying to go into engineering, man. And so I understand that. How'd that conversation go with the parents, man? Like how did they react?
They weren't thrilled. I was 3 years in, and they're like, "You're going to quit college?" I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Why?" And I told them because I didn't want to be an engineer. I hated it. And it wasn't really the work, and it wasn't that I was doing poorly in school. I just really didn't like it. And um, doing kitchens and whatnot. Well, like I said, the kitchen company that I worked for, I was doing installations and repairs and stuff. And they pretty much taught me everything I needed to know about that back then. And I liked that more. And I looked with the journey, like you were saying, you looked at what numbers were. I looked at what the journeymen were making in the kitchen business. I was looking at what the engineers are making. I was like, they make almost the same, and I'm happy doing this, and I hate doing that. And my father's final statement was, "You have to do this for a long time. You better enjoy what you do." So,
Like that. I like that. Now you said you worked for another remodeling company. What made you decide I'm going to go out on my own and
no,
start?
I opened up my own business, manufacturing business, when I was like 23 years old. So I
Okay.
only worked for them for a few years, and um, I don't know what word you'd use, but I had a lot of I don't know if it was absence of brains or just absence of being not knowledgeable in business at all, and just saying I'm going to do this, and I did it. Um, and for about a 15-year period of time, I went from 1,000 square foot shop in me to a 15,000 square foot shop with 20 employees, which I did for I don't know 15, 17 years. And then we got stuck in a bad turn down in the economy, and the state of New Jersey was always putting their hand in my pocket trying to take money. And it got to the point where it just didn't make any sense anymore. And I closed that business and I started doing contracting. And I had three different kitchen stores that I did contracting to. And I had the one company that gave me most of my work called me up one day and said, "Yeah, we're going to go a different direction." I said, "Okay, no problem." And my son said, "Why don't we just open up our own place?" And I went, I don't want to do that again. He was like, "No, no, this is you're not going to be building anything anymore. Now we're just going to open up and do retail." And retail turned into remodeling, and here we are today. So
So when would you say this was, and how old was your son when he said that to you?
he was about 20.
Okay. And so how old is he now, did you say?
He just turned 40.
Okay. Okay. So this is a while ago. This is a while ago.
Yeah.
Are you much happier now that you're in the remodeling space versus the manufacturing space?
Yeah, it's a lot easier because now all I do is have to supply product. I don't have to worry about people making the product. I don't have to worry about people not showing up for work, people having a problem fight with their girlfriend, It's it's much simpler. The product gets ordered, it gets delivered to the house, we put it in, or they put it in themselves, or have someone else put it in. So it's much easier. Plus, I get more creative because I get to do when I had the shop opened up, I got to design some things, but for the most part, I was at the mercy of other people, whether it was an architect or a designer or even just building cabinetry. There was nothing in it. It was just do it. Whereas in this, I get to walk into a space and make it into something that it should be. Um, so I think it's like every job. There's days where you go to work and you love it, and there's days you go to work and say, I wish I was digging a ditch. But I'd say 99% of the time I enjoy my job. Yes.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Did you have that fulfillment like at the beginning? I know you said when you like decided to drop out of college, you were like, I really do like doing this remodeling thing. Did you feel the same fulfillment that you have now on those good days back then, or did it take you time to get there?
No, see, back in those days, again, I don't know if it's being naive or it's just lack of understanding. Everything is a new adventure.
Yeah.
Everything is, I can do something that somebody else hasn't done before. And, it's now it's sort of like, it's not that I've seen everything or done everything, because anybody that says that is either stupid or doesn't have a clue. Um, but, it's more the fact now, do I feel gratified when I do a job correctly? Yeah, but I feel gratified doing every job that we do because no matter what we do, start to finish, unless they're just buying product from us and leaving, our hands are in it the whole way. So, turning you have no idea how many times I have people walk in and go, well, I have this small kitchen and there's nothing I can do with it. And then I'll do the design, have them come in and look at it, and they'll go, wow, that's nice. Where's my kitchen? That is your kitchen. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. So it's that's the gratifying part because I think the shock and surprise, um, more than anything, I think is what gets them because um, they're able to see that there's something that somebody else couldn't come up with or they couldn't come up with themselves. I mean, because I've had jobs where people have told me I've had 6 or 7 people and they can't do anything with this. But see, the plus side to what we do or what our company does is I could build your kitchen from scratch. I can install your kitchen as well as design your kitchen. That's 3 different trades, you know, and not many people have that experience. So when you have somebody that's a designer, and I dealt with lots of them through the years, and some were good, and some were people that drew pictures that didn't make any sense. Um, that's kind of what you live through and work through and learn. And part of the reason that I can do what I do is because I know how to make things work. Whereas somebody that draws a picture, you know, it's a picture, you know.
Yeah.
And I've worked on jobs like that where I've had designers send me pictures and I'm going, there's no way this is going to work. You know, I don't know how to make I know how to defy gravity. I can't make something an upside down pyramid and make it stand. It just doesn't work. And I think that's probably the most gratifying part of the job. That and seeing people happy, because again, it's yes, it's about making money, but it's also about making people happy. Because if they can utilize their house better and makes them more comfortable, that's the kick in it. Doing the work itself, a job is a job. That's why they call it work. You
Yeah.
know, but you know, getting it to that point, that's the gratifying part. Making something that somebody didn't think they could do, or making something look beautiful that really was pretty horrible before. Um, I just bought a new house myself. I lost my wife a few years ago to cancer, and I
Sorry to hear
downsized. Thank you. It's okay. Um, and she ran my showroom. That's part of why all of the things are changing right now. But I bought a new house. I have to do the kitchen over here. People are like, "Wow, what are you going to do with this?" And I'll pull up the drawing and show them. They'll go, "That's the same room." Yeah, it's again, it's no, it's not doing it. It's knowing what to do. You can give anybody instructions on how to put a kitchen in. Well, whether they do it right or not is another story. But having the pieces fit like a puzzle, that's what the hard part is. And once you get past that, it's relatively easy. but it's all about how it works and how it looks, form and function.
That's awesome, man. I'm a little curious, you mentioned the fact that like you've had people come to you before and say, my kitchen's too small. I don't know what to do with this, or whatever it is. I don't know how we can possibly make it look better. What would you say is like the best story that you have of somebody who came to you with that kind of problem where they're like, I don't know what to do with my kitchen, and then you guys ended up remodeling it and they were like ecstatic about it. And then what did that person say about that job that you did?
Um, I mean, I can't really think of one person in particular because we've done a lot of jobs that were like that. I mean, in the last, you know, 15, 20 years, I'd say there's probably been, on an average year, we're doing between 50 and 80 kitchens. You know, I'd say there's probably at least 150 kitchens or more that were that way. Um, but to walk into a room, well, we had a customer, I can tell you a job that we did. You had to go around a corner and make two rights to get into the kitchen. And they had a chimney stack, and that's why you had to make those turns to get into the room.
Mhm.
But when they replaced their furnace, they went with the new style that you don't have to have the chimney go through. And I said, well, why don't we just take the chimney out? And they went, can you do that? I said, well, is your hot water heater hooked up to it? No, hot water heater is separate as well. That also goes outside without the ventless. I said, well, then why can't we just take this out? You can do that. I said, well, I don't take chimneys down, but I can find somebody that does it. And we did it. And it changed the room so dramatically that it opened the place up and they were able to use the room much, much more efficiently. And again, I mean, sometimes it's a simple piece, or something that somebody just doesn't think about, you know, taking out a chimney isn't normal. That's not something that normally pops into my head to do, but it happens. We did a really, really, really expensive kitchen. It was just under $175,000 up in, well, doesn't matter where, we're in New Jersey, but it was in Morris Township. And they were ripping walls out to expand it and make a great room instead of a kitchen, a dining area, and a family room. And they had a hall closet that backed onto what they were supposed to be, removing. And we were there measuring, and I'm looking at this with my son saying, this is not going to work. And he goes, why? I said, well, look, there's a chimney right here in the middle of this, closet. And it's not showing on the plans. So, I said to the homeowner, look, I said, you have a chimney right here. He goes, what do you mean we have a chimney right here? I said, well, look, and I showed him where it was. And I said, we go down to the basement and look. I said, here's where the chimney is. And he goes, how come it's not on the drawing? I said, I don't know. I'm not the architect. So he gets the architect on the phone. The architect says, can you send me your drawings? I went, no. He goes, why not? I said, because if something's wrong with it, I'm not going to be culpable to what you're doing. You're getting paid thousands of dollars to do this. I'm not. So, you had to do that on your own. I'm out. And he wasn't too thrilled about it. But what ended up happening is they couldn't obviously take the chimney out because they weren't replacing their boilers. And it was a huge house. So it was a Frank Lloyd Wright style house. So it had a lot of stonework throughout. And what we did is we said, okay, if we leave where that chimney is on the one side and put a chimney with some space in between it for the stove and some cabinetry, now it'll look like the columns that go through the house with the stone on it as well. And that should do it. And the homeowner was ecstatic about it. So again, I mean, there's different stories like that, but I mean, you know, as I said to my son was the one that came up putting the stone on it, and I was like, well, you're going to get paid this week. Um, and he was young. I think that when we did that job, he was probably 21, 22 years old. But
Wow.
sometimes it's just, you know, you have to think about something or look at a picture to figure out what you're going to do. And that worked out beautifully. It came out to be a beautiful kitchen. They were extremely happy. Plus, the funny part with them were they went to a very exclusive kitchen store and got a price and came to me and we talked and I gave them a lot more than what they were getting from the other company, as well as how we fixed the design for them with the chimney. And they came to buy it the night they came to buy it. They finished up and the husband said, I got to tell you one thing. I said, what's that? He goes, you have to raise your prices. I said, why is that? He goes, well, because the other guy was like $40,000 more than you. and he didn't give us half of what you're giving us. I said, well, I'm making a fair markup, and that's why I'm not looking to gouge anybody. But if you know, when you're in exclusive areas, sometimes people will give you the, you live in that area, you have lots of money, you're going to pay twice as much because you have the money. And I don't look at it that way. I make what my markup is, and that's it. And as a matter of fact, they ended up going on an African safari with the difference in what they saved.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, they were really nice people. Um, but again, like I said, it's you come across all different kinds of people in this business, and I do anything from like really inexpensive kitchens to anything you can dream about. As well as appliances, flooring, anything that has to do with a kitchen or bathroom, I supply, and I do that so that we don't have to deal with 20 different places and conflicting salespeople. Salesman is trying to sell a certain toilet, wants to sell that toilet, and he's going to down talk whatever toilet we've decided to spec for the job. It's just not worth the trouble.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's kind of what we do.
Are you I know you said with that one family they were able to go on like the African safari because they saved so much money.
Hmm.
Would you consider that you kind of have like reasonable prices as like people why people end up working with you, or is there something else that like stands out particularly that people are like, we got to work with them?
I think it's like almost anything like that. How can I explain this? It's just like you and I. We can meet and be the best of friends, or we can meet and be, oh, it's okay. I think when you're dealing with somebody in that kind of a business, okay, you're pretty much married while that job's going on,
Yeah.
and you're doing like an interview as you're doing this job, and you're doing that whole interview as the job's going on as well. So it's sort of like, as I explain to my customers, if you don't feel comfortable and I don't feel comfortable, we shouldn't do business together.
Yeah.
But if we're happy and we like each other, then we're going to get through this and we'll be happy. Because that's the hardest fit. When I first started, I never did retail. When I had my shop and I was making cabinetry and furniture and stuff and stores, interiors and stuff like that, um, I only did business to business work. I didn't deal with end users or homeowners. And dealing with homeowners is a completely different sale because it's a one and done. You're not getting repeats every week or every month or whatever. And so it's a different type of thing. And when you meet somebody, like I said, I used to get upset if I didn't sell a job because I gave them everything I could give them. Then I realized it's not the sale. It's the fit. If our personalities don't gel, it's not going to work. It has nothing to do with money. I mean, money. Am I reasonably priced, and that's why people buy? I don't think it's that. My prices are what I feel are what they should be. There are places out there, and I've heard of people come up with crazy numbers on stuff, and I'm like, I don't know how they sell it. I've heard people doing a bathroom remodel for like $70,000 now. Now,
Wow.
I don't know what you're going to do to a normal bathroom for 70 grand, but I can tell you right now, I'm half of that. And sometimes a lot less than half of that, depending on what we're putting in there. So, how they're coming up with these numbers, I don't know, but it's you know, um, it is what it is. You know, did I answer that? Oh, answer your question.
Honestly, I'm gonna be honest. You probably answered that question better than most people do. Like usually when I ask a question like that, some people are just like, "Oh yeah, like we have this one particular thing," or like people just love us and we're nice, But I think that's the truth. I think if the personalities collide and if you treat the person like a human being, that's a mistake. When you were talking about like how you made the mistake in the beginning where you'd get all upset if you didn't close the sale, that's how
Mhm.
it was for a really long time. Where I would get like really in my head about stuff if it didn't work out. And that happened because I was so like fixated on like the outcome instead of the person. And so I think that's awesome that you mentioned that because I think especially for anyone that's watching this that's an entrepreneur or they're starting out or whatever, um, it's a very important mindset shift to have, and I think some people lack that, and so That was awesome, man. That was really good. Um, I'm gonna get a little bit deep for a second here. Um, if you weren't allowed to say a single thing ever again, like if like on the internet or like maybe you were like this was the last thing you could ever say that you'd want people to remember you for, what would that be? Like one sentence or one statement that you'd want people to remember you for?
Fair, honest, and treats with respect. I don't. It seems like a too open-ended question to give a full answer on. But again, I mean, I think that's part of what it is. I think part of what it is that I respect people, want them to respect me. Um, I tell people the truth, and I want them to tell me the truth as well. And it, money comes and goes. Doing this type of work isn't all about money, and for some people it is, but for me it's not. I want to make a living and I want to survive and do well, but it's not about selling my soul to get a job, and then either hating the job while I'm doing it, or ripping somebody off, which is not my way. So it's sort of I don't know. I, I don't know if I answered your question for you or not, but
No, there's no wrong answer. There's no wrong
I know
answer.
I know it's not a wrong answer, but I guess it's like I don't know if it's the type of if it's the area of what you're looking for an answer for, because I don't know that was like a really question I wasn't expecting you to ask me, I guess.
Yeah, no, I kind of just thought of it. I was curious. I felt like you would have something good to say, and I do like what you said. I also, you mentioned something in there about how um, you don't want to do a job that you dread. What is like your criteria when you're looking at a potential client or a job and you say like, okay, I just don't want to do this. Like, there's no way I'm going to do this job.
It's not the job, it's the people more than the job. I don't think I've ever come across a house that I wouldn't try tackling. I've come across people that I don't want any part of because they don't fit. If somebody comes in and they know more than I do about what I do, they definitely don't need me.
Yeah.
And
That
I've had
is
people do
awesome.
that to me,
That's a good way of putting it. I like that. I really like the way you put that. That's a good way of saying it.
you know. And it's true because again, like I said, I've had people come in and like I won't get specific, but I've had people come in and I go, oh, well, quartz is the best way to go. Why is that? It's indestructible. No, it burns. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it does. And they're like, no, it doesn't. I'm like, okay. I said, do me a favor. I'll give them like some websites or some information to look up online, or I'll just say, okay, if you really feel that way, because when my showroom's set up, I have a 42-inch monitor behind me, and I have a 27-inch monitor to my left. So as we're doing the work, I can look at the monitor and they're seeing everything I'm doing behind me. And so now I'll just go out of the drawing, go into Google and look up, the information and say, no, what does that say? And they'll go, I didn't realize that. I said, well, part of the reason you come to a professional is that a professional can show you what is good and what is bad and why, or at least tell you what is good and what is bad. And then you can judge for yourself and move forward however you want. Oh, and a lot of that, again, if that doesn't suffice during that conversation by having that statement, then this is probably somebody that's not going to work well with me because, again, if you don't trust me, you don't need me. You have to trust that what I'm telling you is right. And it's not that I know everything, but this is all I do. I mean, I don't go into a doctor and say, I got a cut on my finger and have 15 reasons why it shouldn't be sewn. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why you're going to the doctor. And it's not that I'm a doctor and I'm so all knowing, but again, I mean, by comparison to some people in this business, yeah, I know a lot more than some people in this business because I've seen jobs that people have designed that they brought in and go, let me show you my design. I'm like, I really don't want to see it. And they'll go, why? Because I don't want to look and critique somebody else's work for one, and for two, let me just do my work and then you can figure it out between what you like better. And most of the time people go, why is that? I said, because I don't want to have a critiquing match between somebody else. And I don't want you taking my drawings and go to somebody else and do the same thing.
Well, Greg, I've really enjoyed our show today. Just for anyone that's watching, I always have a question at the end of the podcast from the previous podcast guest. And today's question for you, Greg, is what is the most important thing for like your motivation as to why you do what you do? Like what gives you motivation?
Um, Good question. I don't really have an answer to that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, at this point, I've built the business to a point where I want to be able to hand it to my son, who's put his time in doing it. He loves the business, and I'm getting close to retiring. I'm 66 years old, so it's not like I'm going to be doing this for another 20 years. He will be probably, um, and um, it's treated me well. Obviously you go through ups and downs in business throughout life, but it's what I know. It's what I do. Um, Too old to start doing something else now. You know,
Yeah. Yeah,
doing a podcast in itself was kind of unusual for me. Zoom meetings and stuff like that are not stuff I do often. So I guess I don't really, again, back to the same thing. I guess I don't really have a good answer. Um, but I think, you know, like I said, it's keeping the business going the direction it started, giving my son the tools to be able to take it to the next, you know, 20 years. So
that's awesome, man. That's beautiful. My dream is has always been kind of similar that one day I don't have a kid. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm 23, so
now you're young. I know.
yeah,
I can see that.
so, but my dream's always been that one day, like, I'll be able to provide for my family and hand the business off to my kids or whatever they want to do with it. I don't know. They can take it behind the barn and shoot it, as they say, if they'd like. But I get that, man, and that's really awesome. It's awesome seeing somebody that's doing that. And so, you've inspired me on this call, and I've really enjoyed this podcast, man. Is there where can the audience find you?
They can either go to dreamkitchenllc.com and there's a form on there they can fill out to reach us, or they can reach me at this point at 908-380-1863, and we'll set up an appointment. I'll come out and take a look. I don't charge um, for a measure. I don't charge for the first consultation. I will do a design and show you a design, but I do not give you the design. If you purchase the kitchen, then you get the design, but I don't just give designs out because that's my time and that's it. But I find that works better because, again, there's a lot of places that charge $100 for a design and they may or may not know what they're doing with it. And then, because I've seen a lot of scary designs. Anyway, uh, but again, that's pretty much how we do it. I do a free measure, free design, but the design is my property until it's purchased. I don't give out copies of it.
That's awesome, man. Well, Greg, I've really enjoyed this episode. This is a really good episode, and I've enjoyed having you on, man.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. You're a great man. I enjoyed the conversation. You did. I think you did good because I'm impressed for somebody your age actually doing what you're doing. So
Thank you.
that's
I appreciate that.
because most kids at your age are. I'm sorry, I'm not calling you a kid, but next to me you're a kid.
I get it.
Next,
I get it.
let's put it this way: you could almost be my son's kid.
My dad's 79. He calls me a kid, so I get it.
Okay, that's cool. But um, yeah, I mean, most people your age are sitting and watching TV or, in mom and dad's basement, afraid to come out. So I appreciate the fact that you're doing something, and it's good. So
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you. Appreciate what you said, and I absolutely love the show, man. You have a wonderful day.
you do the same, pal. Take care now.
You too. Bye.
Bye.